G'day to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. You'll never guess where I am. I haven't been here for 45 years. I'm here at Sofala on my way to Mudgee. I thought I'd take a 30-kilometre detour and come through here. And the Turon River, as you can see, is flowing beautifully. And it's green all around here, and it's absolutely magnificent. So what I'll do is we'll go on a walk and talk, and I'll just walk through the streets of Sofala and do a book summary, a vlog, so that we can have a chat and see and highlight and showcase the beauty of this country around us. And Sofala is very unique. As I say, I haven't been here for 45 years, but now that I've gotten here, it hasn't disappointed. It has all the character that I once remembered, that I once saw, and it is a full expression of the old Australia that I remember and that I still recall and love so dearly. As you can see, this is the entrance to Sofala, and what I want to do is, as I say, showcase and highlight the beauty of Sofala, but also do a book summary along the way, so we do a double whammy so that we can see what's happening here and also learn something new where possible. So today I'm going to talk about a book entitled The Coach's Guide to Teaching by an author known as Doug Lemov. And this book is all about how to coach, how to teach, and how to get the best out of the people around you. So let's walk and talk and admire the quaintness of this old Australian town and see what we can learn. So the author of this book kicks off the book with an observation where he says that teaching is knowing the difference between I taught it and I learnt it. You know, you just can't throw words at people. You can't just think that you're teaching by just pushing information and data at children, grandchildren, work peers. No, it's a two-pronged process. You need to teach it and you need to test it to make sure that it's been received and it's been learnt. So the author of this book goes on to talk a little bit more about coaching and teaching, and he says that one of the key messages that we all need to accept and to absorb is that decision making is often improved by learning to see better and see further. Oh, this is called Lover's Lane. How interesting. So decision making, so being able to decide. And I remember years ago going to an Anthony Robbins seminar where he says the word decision comes from a Latin word which means to cut away from. So when you decide, you need to cut away from something, you need to replace it with something else. So a decision is something that you don't dabble in. It's not something that you just talk about and think about. It's something you do, it's an action you do, and it's an action which leads to cutting away from things. So the author here says that decision making is improved by learning to see better and to see further. Let me just take a little walk down here and see where this leads us. So once again, perception is a crucial skill to faster decision making. Hello, a little doggy here, well, a couple of dogs actually, so I'll just be careful that I get mauled. So perception is a crucial skill to faster decision making, and you can build perception, you can learn perception, you can build it according to the author, and you can also build and hone your decision muscle by making more decisions, being more decisive, mapping your decisions and the outcomes, and learning by doing. Let's go all the way down here to the Turon River. Oh, this is just so beautiful. Wow, I just love being here. I'll organise to come up here with my grandchildren one day, and and son-in-laws, and hopefully the daughters will tag along. But here we are with the river. It's flowing. We've got some ducks down there, but it's just peaceful. It's just beautiful, just absolutely wonderful. So the author here has made some really important, powerful points, where he says that we need to be able to see better and to see further. And both perception and decision making is a skill that you can build, a skill that you can hone. You know, you can build perception and you can build decision making by making more decisions, by being more decisive. You know, so a lot of people procrastinate and don't do things because they're scared of making mistakes. But what we've learnt in life is one of the keys is to make decisions and assess those decisions along the way, because it's only through making decisions and assessing the outcomes that you learn from your decisions. And people who are afraid of making decisions are causing themselves issues. They're causing themselves issues because they're not learning through the decision cycle. So another thing that the author says here is that it's important to be decisive. Decisive. How many people do you know who are decisive? You know, the mark of a great leader is a person who can make decisions, who is not fearful of making decisions, and knowing that if they make the wrong decision, they can assess it, sort it out, and make another decision. Too many people are afraid of making decisions for fear of being wrong. But what we've learnt over the years is that we need to be option thinkers. Make quick mistakes, make a decision, and if you see that that decision is not serving you, is not working for you, then by all means change that decision and do something else. And the author here talks about the importance of making decisions and also mapping out your decisions, being able to see ahead by looking at or assessing the first, second and third level consequences of the decisions you make. That helps you look forward. My mother was a sort of person who would always look into the future and try and figure out what was happening, create scenarios in her mind in terms of what she thought would occur if so and so happened, or actions A, B and C were done. So let me just continue here. So it's all important. It's very important to understand, to be able to work on those muscles, work on the decision-making muscle, and work on things such as the perception muscle, and to understand that you learn by doing. You learn by doing, and another way of learning is by reading and by incorporating and using OPE, other people's experiences. And that's what I try and do with Jim's 5am Club. What I try and do is I try and capture OPE, other people's experiences, in the form of book summaries, observations, and use that where possible to help us learn and create life hacks. So the author goes on to say that great leaders are great teachers, but we need to check for understanding. And culturally, there are some cultures that will nod their head and say, yeah, I get it, I understand. But all they're basically nodding their head to is saying that I'm hearing you. Not necessarily suggesting or saying that they understand what you're saying to them. So to be a great communicator, I guess what the author is saying is that we need to be able to check for understanding. It's not about giving orders, it's not about telling people what to do, but it's all about trying to understand whether or not they get it or not. So Safala, oh so beautiful, unchanging, exactly the same as what I once remember it from 45 years ago. One of the beauties in the world is being able to step back in time, and the memories that you have are unadulterated. They're preserved so that you can at least know that what you once remembered is real, is authentic, and not just a figment of your imagination. So here we go. We can pop our head through here. Safala is Australia's oldest gold town. There you go. I didn't know that. I knew it was special, but I didn't know it was that special. Check out this roof here, this rusty old tin roof. Wouldn't it be great to be sleeping in there under that roof when it's pelting down? So quiet. I just feel guilty breaking the silence with my vlog, but it's all good. There's a beautiful pub in the town here. There's a memorial hall. So let's go on, let's learn something else as well. So the second formal point to come from this book is where the author talks about experts and novices learn differently. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Experts and novices learn differently. So what we're saying here is that we need to adjust our teaching approach based on the skill levels of the people who are being taught. Not everybody's the same. You just need to adjust your level to make the most of what you're trying to teach and the ability of the people to absorb the message. Let's go for a walk through the park. I'll go up the other street and see what it has to offer. So what we have learnt over time is that as soon as the training is completed, that forgetting starts. So we need to apply the learnings that we accumulate in our lives. And for that reason, in Jim's 5am Club, once I read a book or a book summary, what I immediately try and do is I immediately take some notes, and I try as quickly as I can to articulate it, to talk about it, so that I'm at least applying it in some form and then practicing it where possible throughout the day as well. Oh, here we go. We've got some things in here for sale. We've got some rhubarb and some gladioli. Do not eat. Interesting. Some rosemary. But everything here is old. Everything is old, or looks old. But beautiful old, not ugly old. This is the closest thing you'll come to a Greek chorio, where it's authentic, like the roads are old and not overly completed. So the author here talks about the importance of applying our learning, and we need to teach in order to learn. If you want to learn something really, really well, I remember one of my lecturers at university saying, then you've got to learn it in order to teach it. So the best thing to do is to learn something and try and pass it on. And that's why in life, the mantra that we have here on Jim's 5am Club is live, learn, and pass it on. So teaching to learn. And the other lesson from this book is that we need to establish and to use a consistent vocabulary, using the words and a consistent vocabulary that other people understand, other people know, and can create word pictures in their minds so that you know that what you're seeing or what you're saying is what the other person is understanding and receiving. And I remember learning that the quality of a person's life is directly relational and in proportion to the quality of the vocabulary that they have. So the more words you know, the more accurate you are in terms of seeing things and describing things, then the better you are going to be in order to communicate those things to yourself, in order to make sense of them, and the better you are going to be able to communicate those things to other people. There we go. We've got a beautiful old house here with a picture of the Prime Minister on the front saying that he doesn't hold a hose. How funny. Who would want to be a Prime Minister, honestly? Doesn't matter what you do, people are going to attack you. Rustlers roost. Look at all the rust here. Rustlers, rust. Look at all this rust. But a trip into yesteryear. Look at the old cannon over there. Even that's rusted away. The Memorial Hall of Sofala. Cool. I don't think I've seen so many old Fords, old rusted out Fords in all my life. There's another one here in the front yard. So once again, the author here talks about the importance of having consistent language. And that's why you'll see during the election campaign, the Prime Minister and the Opposition Minister will often use the same words over and over and over again. The words that trigger emotion, the words that associate back in time with what people feel. They create emotion, as we said, and there are words that people understand and respond to. So having a rich vocabulary is key, according to this author, if you want to be a great communicator and if you want to be somebody who can make an impact. So the last formal point to come out of this book is where the author talks about the fact that great teachers check for learning and check for understanding. I remember years ago when I was working at NCR, there was a trainer there who was absolutely exceptional in what he did. And we're doing a course on SQL, a programming language which was new, and it was designed to work in well with this new operating platform that NCR was about to launch globally. And in that class, it was very technical, and we needed to learn a lot in a very short period of time. But I remember the educator then, he before we started the class, he would ask people, first of all, introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, what do you know. So he would start the class, and I try and identify, people's strengths, their weaknesses, to understand what his base was or where his starting point was. And then he would go through and do his modules, talk about what he was about to talk about and teach us. And continually through that process, he'd be stopping, he'd be summarising, and he'd be going back over and looping over and over again what he just said, and checking each and every one of us for what we understand, by asking questions and prodding us and encouraging us to ask questions and to make sure that we're closing the loop on the things that we'd learnt. And then at the end of the day, when we left, because we were coming back the next day, he would sit back and then he would ask the class to summarise what they'd learnt for the day. And we'd all just contribute. Oh, we learnt this, we learnt that, we learnt this. And, without doing it himself directly, he was able to get us all to summarise the points, the key learnings that we learnt throughout the day. And the next morning when we come in, he'd do the same thing again. He'd ask us, what do you remember from yesterday? So before we learned anything new, we'd talk about and establish what we had learnt, to make sure that we remembered it, because that was going to be the basis, that was going to be the foundation of what we were going to be learning and adding to it throughout the day. And I remember him saying that learning is the process, is the art form of adding the unknown to the known. A brilliant educator. I forget his name. I remember what he looks like. I can just see his face and his expression. But I remember saying to myself back then that this guy here was light years ahead of any other person that I'd met in the academic and the teaching space. And his skill set and his ability to make things simple, and to empower us so that we felt good about what we were learning, and that we contributed to each other's learning as well. So it wasn't about him teaching us. Throughout the class, throughout the day, he'd be prodding us to say things to each other, encouraging us to ask questions, because every question that somebody had, it usually was a similar sort of question that other people had but were afraid to ask. So a brilliant opportunity for me to learn how to learn, I guess, basically. And this is what this book is saying as well, that we need to continually check for understanding. Check to make sure, is the picture that I'm seeing the same as the picture that other people are seeing? And that takes skill, it takes confidence, it takes trust, and it takes respect. You're respecting your students, and the students respect the teacher as well, because they understand that he knows that we all have limitations in what we learn and how we learn, and we need people to help us along the way. So as we said, the bottom line is the key to everything is that we've got to be able to apply our knowledge, not only learn but apply it, because unless you've applied it, then you don't really know it is the message. Let me just get on the road here. We've got cars coming through, so I'll make sure I don't get run over. So the other thing that the author says is that we've got to learn things so that we know it well enough and we can apply it under pressure. There's no use learning things when you've got all the time in the world to incorporate it and use it. Sometimes we need to do it with pressure, and as we said, to do it knowing it when times create pressure. Most people suffer under pressure and forget things. The kids who are best at exams at school are the ones who have studied under conditions of pressure, where you can basically pressure test it. Pressure testing solutions, pressure testing answers, pressure testing your knowledge is what you need to do in order to be the best possible student you can become. So don't be afraid of pressure testing your knowledge and recalling it under pressure, because in life, when we are tested is when you are probably at your best to show your leadership and your capability. So I think that's it. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club, where we've come to the quaint old town of Sofala, and we've learnt today that Sofala is the oldest gold town, I guess, in New South Wales, could be Australia, and it's still surviving. Let me have a look over here, because I think there's a date. There's a date on the sign, and we'll close out and we'll finish up this video. And it says here, welcome to Sofala, the oldest surviving gold town, established 1851. There you go. I didn't know that before. And as I said, it was 45 years ago since I've been here. And I'll be back with my grandchildren hopefully one day, and daughters, just to show off this wonderful place, a place that hasn't changed, that has stayed the same, and reminds us of what Australia once looked like. Let's just go over here, and there's a bit of information here about Sofala. There's some photos. There's talk about the footbridge. I'm talking about this footbridge here, which would have crossed over the river, the Turon, the beautiful Turon River. I love that river. And a bit of history in terms of Sofala, 1851, the gold revival, quite remarkable. Anyway, for all of those people who live in Sydney, take a drive. It's probably about a 2 or 3 hour drive from Sydney. As I say, I'm on my way to Mudgee, and I've stopped off here just to remember my youth and to do a vlog. And hopefully you've enjoyed it. We've learned something new, and a wonderful way to pass a beautiful day. Take care, Yassas, and bye for now.